If we look deeper into the dynamics of that viral exchange between Representative Jasmine Crockett and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, we uncover layers that extend far beyond politics and into the cultural, historical, and systemic fabric of America itself. The clash was more than a disagreement. It was a visible manifestation of power imbalance, coded language, and generational frustration. To fully understand what made this moment resonate so widely, we must examine not just what was said, but the context, the symbolism, and the decades of silenced frustration that simmered behind Crockett's calm yet commanding words. In many ways, Jasmine Crockett's rise in Congress mirrors the lived experience of thousands of professional black women in high-stakes environments. Highly educated, overprepared, and persistently doubted, Crockett isn't new to confrontation. She's a former public defender who has spent her life defending people that society tends to forget. Her roots are in justice, not just as a concept, but as a lived responsibility. And when she entered Congress, she brought that sense of duty with her. So, when she stood up not just for herself, but for the principle of fairness and respect, she wasn't deviating from the norm, she was fulfilling her core mission. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, on the other hand, often represents a political theater that prizes provocation over policy. Her brand is one of defiance, controversy, and media spectacle. To her supporters, she's a truth teller, unafraid of political correctness. To her critics, she's a danger to democratic discourse. And so when Greene directed her attention to Crockett, not with a policy critique, but with a personal jab, she activated a legacy of microaggressions and public erasure that too many black women in leadership have endured. What followed was not simply Crockett's response. It was a release of years, decades, of frustration. Her words didn't just refute Greene's attack, they articulated what countless Americans have felt when confronted with the insidious ways disrespect shows up in professional spaces. It wasn't the loudest voice that won. It was the clearest, and that clarity is what shook the room, and the nation. Let's pause and examine the psychology of what happened in that room. Greene launched an attack expecting silence or deflection. But what she met instead was someone fully equipped, emotionally, intellectually, and professionally, to meet that challenge head-on. That kind of poise under pressure isn't accidental. It's learned. It's rehearsed. It's developed through years of being the only one, or one of few, in rooms where voices like hers are minimized. That moment showed millions of people, especially young black girls watching from afar, that there is power in composure. That not every attack must be met with rage, but that truth, spoken firmly and intelligently, can cut deeper than any insult. Crockett's refusal to back down also exposed a broader pattern of behavior that often goes unchecked in Congress. How many times have we watched hearings devolve into shouting matches, with little consequence for those who provoke? How often are women of color told to be quiet, to wait their turn, to tone it down, to not make it about race? Crockett didn't make it about race, Greene did. Whether explicitly or implicitly, Greene's comments carried with them the weight of dismissal that black women have fought against for generations. And Crockett responded not as a victim, but as a leader. The clip's virality didn't come from the drama alone. It came from its emotional truth. Viewers recognized something real, something unfiltered and unpretentious. There were no rehearsed sound bites. There was no spinning. It was authenticity in a space that often rewards the opposite. From a political communication standpoint, this moment offered a masterclass in rhetorical strategy. Crockett didn't take the bait. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't spiral into personal attacks. Instead, she deployed calm logic, surgical sarcasm, and undeniable facts. She exposed the hollowness of Greene's argument simply by holding up a mirror and asking, essentially, this is your strategy. This is your contribution to democracy. There was something revolutionary about that stillness. In a world obsessed with shouting louder, Crockett showed that silence, when used strategically, can speak volumes. Her pauses created space for her words to land. Her cadence controlled the room. Her delivery was deliberate. Every second mattered. Political science professors have already begun incorporating the clip into university courses as a case study in political courage and rhetorical control. Law students, especially women of color, have cited it as a validation of their own experiences, where they are often expected to absorb disrespect without reaction. What Crockett did was grant permission, for many, to say, enough. There's also a generational shift occurring in American politics, and this moment crystallized it. For years, traditional political figures have relied on institutional decorum and old guard alliances to maintain order. But Crockett represents a new generation, bold, unapologetic, and uninterested in playing by outdated rules that protect the powerful at the expense of the truth. She didn't yell, she didn't curse, she simply stopped pretending that Greene's behavior was acceptable, and in that moment, she signaled to the American public that civility does not mean submission. One of the most powerful lines came not during the confrontation, but after. In an interview with MSNBC, Crockett said, "I refuse to let disrespect be normalized in this institution. Not for me, and not for anyone else." That statement resonated because it reframed what happened in the hearing room as not just personal, but political. She wasn't defending herself, she was drawing a line for everyone. Let's also consider how the media reacted. Right-leaning outlets framed the exchange as another example of democratic outrage, while left-leaning outlets called it a moment of reckoning. But the truth lies somewhere deeper. This wasn't about left or right. It was about dignity, about whether we allow disrespect to become a currency in our most sacred democratic institutions. When clips like this go viral, they become cultural artifacts. People rewatch them not just to be entertained, but to be reminded. To feel something. To remember that someone, somewhere, refused to shrink. The viral spread also highlighted how digital platforms have become spaces of empowerment for underrepresented voices. Crockett's moment was amplified not just by cable news, but by Gen Z TikTok creators, millennial activists on Instagram, and working moms on Facebook. Across generations, people connected with her message. Not everyone agreed with her politics, but they respected her poise. And in this hyper-polarized age, respect is a rare currency. Some critics tried to spin the moment into a narrative of angry black woman. That trope, tired and racist, has been used for decades to silence women like Crockett. But she dismantled it in real time. There was no anger, only assertion. There was no chaos, only control. And in doing so, she showed that those old narratives no longer apply. Not because the world has changed, but because women like her are forcing it to. Let's look historically. Shirley Chisholm, Barbara Jordan, Maxine Waters, these women paved the way for Jasmine Crockett. And now, Crockett is adding her own chapter. Not by mimicking them, but by building upon their legacies with a style all her own. She isn't trying to be anyone else. She's being herself. And that authenticity is exactly why this moment has taken off. In classrooms, educators are pausing to play the clip and ask their students, "What do you see here? What does it mean to speak truth to power?" And the answers vary, from, "She spoke for all of us," to, "This is why representation matters." These conversations are not accidental, they are necessary. Because moments like these are not just about who wins the argument. They're about who gets heard. And let's not forget, Crockett is still relatively new to Congress. This is just the beginning of her national platform. If this moment is any indication of her trajectory, she is not only a rising star, she's a force. What happens next? That's the critical question. Will Congress take steps to ensure mutual respect among its members? Will political discourse elevate, or will it continue to degrade into personal attacks and theater? The answer lies partly in whether leaders like Crockett are supported, not just applauded. Because courage without protection leads to burnout. And voices like hers must be preserved, not exploited. Crockett's moment was more than viral, it was visionary. It offered a glimpse into the kind of leadership we need. One that is unbothered by bullying, unswayed by noise, and unafraid to be real. It reminded us that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it speaks softly, and carries the truth. And so the clip continues to circulate. On phones, laptops, TV screens. In classrooms, dorm rooms, boardrooms. And every time someone hits play, the ripple widens. Because what Jasmine Crockett did that day wasn't just respond to Marjorie Taylor Greene. She responded to a nation tired of watching women, especially black women, be dismissed, disrespected, and denied the space to lead with full humanity. And in just a few sharp words, she reminded the world, we are here. We are ready, and we are not going anywhere.